Welcome back, you guys, and at one point in Jabari Parker's basketball career, he was one of the most hyped high school athletes in the country around the year 2012, and was even called the best high school hooper since LeBron James. He was looked at as the next NBA superstar, and the hype for him at the time seemed legit as he dominated Chicago high school basketball for 4 straight years. But in the year 2018, Jabari Parker has not turned into the next NBA superstar. Right now, he's been removed from the regular rotation on the Chicago Bulls, and they aren't in the business of winning games at the moment. Let's talk about his rise, the many things that contributed to him not becoming a superstar, and the situation with the Bulls. If you want to see the Bulls tank in person or any other NBA team, the best way to do that is through the SeatGeek app, who I want to thank for sponsoring this video. Instead of having to search everywhere on the web for the best ticket prices, SeatGeek does all the work for you by putting every single ticket from that event into one spot for you to pick from. They then give those tickets a grade out of 100, so if it's green, then you know it's a good deal. If it's red, then you know it's a bad deal. If you're still not sure about the seat you picked, they have a feature that lets you see what you're getting before you buy. Also, remember, by supporting SeatGeek, you're also supporting my content, so if you're thinking about going to a game or a concert this winter, you can get $20 off your first ticket purchase by using my promo code CAINE when you check out. After his first year of high school basketball at Simeon High School, Jabari Parker immediately established himself as somebody that was worth going out to see play basketball, and somebody who'd be hyped up nationally. There was a no freshman start rule at Simeon High School, but that changed with Jabari Parker because he was just too productive as a player to not play the majority of the minutes. In his first 2 years of high school, he helped Simeon win back-to-back state titles. He was picked as ESPN's Freshman and Sophomore of the Year, and by the summer of 2011, he was considered the #1 player regardless of class. If you kept up with high school basketball recruiting around this time, you definitely remember the hype and how it felt justified because of how he was dominating the game as a 6'6", 6'7" forward. The accolades and state titles kept rolling in. In his junior year in 2012, he carried Simeon to a 33-1 record and a 3rd straight state championship. The next month, he was picked as the Gatorade National Player of the Year, which put him in a category with LeBron, Greg Oden, and Brandon Knight as the only non-seniors to win the award. Then in May 2012, the Sports Illustrated magazine issue dropped that said on the cover, he was the best high school player since LeBron. Check this quote from the article about Jabari's playstyle. This was probably the peak of Jabari's high school hype. Jabari handles the ball like a point guard and has a crossover that makes defenders stumble. His first step has been compared to Oscar Robertson's. He can drain threes, yet he goes to the rim with power and uses his 6'11.5" wingspan to block shots and snatch rebounds. One NBA executive told SI that if Jabari were eligible for the 2012 draft, he would be a lottery pick in June. I'm not sure where to start after reading that. A 6'8" forward that can dribble with a first step of a Hall of Famer is an amazing player. Add in 3-point shooting, relentless rim attacking, and someone who fights for boards. That sounds like a surefire superstar in about 5 years. In his final high school season, Jabari was able to bring Simeon High School a 4th straight state championship. He was awarded tons of trophies and placed on every relevant All-American high school player list, but he was bumped down to the #2 player in the country when another 6'8" forward from Ontario, Canada, named Andrew Wiggins reclassified into the class of 2013. Jabari was offered from every major school you can think of, but decided on going to Duke University.
The fall of 2013, I will be attending Duke University.
As a team during the 2013-14 college season, Duke slightly fell off from the year before as an Elite 8 team, but Jabari as an individual was displaying that this is somebody that an NBA team can feel good about drafting in the top 2 or top 3. He started off the season with 7 straight 20-point games and was out there doing what most expected of him, and that is to get buckets. The hype was pretty loud, and some people were writing articles of who will have a more impressive year in 2014, him or LeBron. They took an early loss to Mercer in the tournament where Jabari didn't play well, but still, going into the 2014 draft, most mock boards had him placed in the top 3 with Andrew Wiggins and Joel Embiid. In theory, he was the most pro-ready player because of his ability to score from all 3 levels on the floor, not to mention his versatility as a 6'8" forward. That meant he could play either a traditional small forward role or run as a quote-unquote small ball 4. The reason why Jabari was still behind Wiggins in draft boards was because of his suspect defense and the fact that Wiggins' athleticism on both sides of the floor potentially could make him a top 3 player in the entire league. So as most expected, the Milwaukee Bucks selected Jabari with the second pick of the draft. Other than a few first-round playoff appearances, Milwaukee for those last 12 years or so were pretty irrelevant as a franchise. They won only 15 games in 2014, so Jabari was looked at as a franchise savior and someone who could get the fans excited about going to games. He was also in theory the perfect fit next to Giannis since they both could play forward. Most players in their first year aren't that good, and it usually takes some time for their skill sets to translate to team wins, but unfortunately for Jabari, he didn't get to go through a long season of learning from his rookie struggles. After just 25 games, he suffered a torn ACL and was out for the entire year. He had a double-double in 2 out of his first 3 games and was picked as the Eastern Conference Rookie of the Month for October and November. That was really unfortunate because now his second season is basically another rookie year. Instead of going into that summer healthy and working on his game, he's also rehabbing his body to prepare for the season. The Bucks made it to the playoffs in Jabari's rookie year, so there are some expectations to get back to the playoffs, and at the same time you have to develop Jabari. Tough situation for that season, but he would eventually have a stretch of games in the 2015-2016 season where he looked like he was getting it back. He started off the beginning of the season rough shooting the ball, he looked a lot slower than usual, and his defense, which already wasn't that great, took a hit. In March 2016, Jabari had his best month of the season. He was at the point where he was playing almost 36 minutes per game in the starting lineup and getting buckets. The team wasn't that good, but for someone who was struggling early on, it was a good stretch of games to build on for the 2016-2017 season, which turned out to be the best year of his career. Jabari finally had an off season to work on his game rather than worrying about rehabbing along with it, and it showed. In the month of December 2016, Jabari put up 22 points, 6 rebounds, shot 54% from the field, and hit on 40% of his threes. And he followed up that month in January by averaging 20 points on 45% shooting. The next superstar of the NBA talk fell off, but Jabari had promise and looked like a really good second option and somebody who could maybe get an all-star berth or two. He was really looking like the second guy next to Giannis. But unfortunately, Jabari tore his ACL in February 2017, a second left knee injury in 3 years. It's sad because there were no signs of him having nagging knee issues leading up to that. The situation got even more complicated because in just 1 year, Jabari would be going into restricted free agency, and this second injury put him out of a lot of long-term money he was going to get. After another long year of rehabbing, Jabari made his return to the court against the Knicks in February 2018. He was now coming off the bench full-time as Giannis and Middleton were the forwards. We knew it was pretty much over for Jabari Parker in Milwaukee when he wasn't getting playing time in the playoff series against Boston. He was very frustrated and claimed that he wasn't on the good side of head coach Joe Prunty. Jabari said to the media that, "I am human, I have a right to be frustrated, I've waited 2 years for this." It makes sense why he wasn't getting those minutes. He didn't have the same first step to get by people, and he couldn't defend or keep up with the speed of a Boston team that did not have many places for you to hide on defense. Tony Snell, Chris Middleton, and Giannis were the right guys to go with for that series. To be fair to Jabari, this was obviously very frustrating for him because he had 2 ACL tears after being brought in as a franchise savior. Not only is there pressure for you to get back to what you were, there's pressure for you to fit in next to Giannis, who grew into the superstar player that Jabari probably thought he'd become 3 years ago. His playing time went down, his skills on both sides of the floor diminished, and naturally you're going to be frustrated whether it's justified or not. There were questions going into the summer of 2018 whether or not the Bucks would bring back Jabari, but the Bulls made that easier for them when they offered Jabari a 2-year, $40 million contract. He was a restricted free agent, so the Bucks could have matched, but ultimately they did not. The deal wasn't looked at too negatively from Bulls fans because the second year is a team option, which means the Bulls can cut Jabari next year if things don't work out. The Bulls are rebuilding and weren't expected to be good, so why not bring in a hometown hero for 1 or maybe 2 years? In his first press conference with the Bulls, he said something that sums up his play on the defensive end with the Bulls perfectly. Jabari, for about the first 10 to 12 games when he was a starter, he was not that effective. I mean, again, the Bulls weren't expected to be good, but you can tell that he was not the same player he was back in 2017. He was just taking a lot of shots and getting beat on defense. Even though he got moved to the bench, Jabari was showing flashes of what he did with the Bucks back in 2017 in November. He was making threes, getting to the rim, and actually somewhat playing within the Bulls' offense. In those stretch of games, he put up 21 points, 9 rebounds, and 4 assists, and was definitely being productive on the offensive side of the floor. On defense, he still was not good, of course, because of lack of lateral movement, and he had poor effort on some possessions. The question a few weeks ago was, how will he fit in when Bobby Portis and Lauri Markkanen make a return and take up most of the power forward minutes? Well, that answer was solved very quick. Just 2 months into the season and days after the drama where the Bulls were thinking about boycotting practice, Jabari was removed from the regular rotation and is now in trade rumors. There were rumors that popped up a few days ago that the Jazz would be interested in trading for Jabari. His contract is basically only 1 year, so trading for him is sort of a low risk, but at the same time, who's going to give up an asset for a half of a year of Jabari Parker? The story of Jabari Parker's potential as an NBA superstar is a complicated one. You can look at his 2 career-altering injuries as a major factor as to why Jabari was never able to reach that status. You can also look at his attitude towards defense and his occasional ball-stopping mentality as to why he couldn't adjust to this era of basketball. He went from a generational star in high school to looking like a borderline all-star in 2017 to now someone who has a very low trade value at the age of 23. That's it for me, man. Very tough situation for Jabari right now. What team trades for him? It'll be interesting to see if any teams besides the Jazz are rumored. Appreciate it if you made it to the end of this one. Next video should be on players who are surprising to start the season, so be on the lookout for that.